Now, the White House has shared the way it calculated the tariffs and the non-tariff trade barriers. It's very important. They said that they were calculating that. The equation includes imports, exports, price elasticity, and other variables. But what everybody says is it boils down to something much simpler. First, you take the US trade deficit in goods with the nation in question. For China, it's 295. You then divide that by the value of US goods imported from the country, 440 billion. And what you've determined is the surplus, which is 67%, and then you divide that by 2. According to China, that's the effective rate. You divide it in half to arrive at the reciprocal tariff. The White House counselor, Peter Navarro, told me in February the formula is designed to level the playing field.
For the U.S. to compete, and President Trump, what's going to happen here with his fair and reciprocal plan is he's going to calculate equivalent reciprocal tariffs based on countries, customized for each country depending on how big they're cheating us. And they're either going to stop cheating us, which we would love, or we're going to impose those tariffs.
Now, Mary Lovely is a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. They are the experts on tariffs and know all about it. When you looked at first of all, it came online this morning on X, this idea of the very simplistic deficit divided by exports divided by 2. Then we got this complicated formula from USTR, which seemed to end up at the same result. As you look at this formula at Peterson, what do you make of it?
It's kind of backward induction to the answer that they want. I don't know how else to put it. It does look very impressive. It has a delta and an epsilon and subscripts, but it basically amounts to cherry picking a couple of numbers so that it ends up with exactly what you said. It's the trade deficit divided by U.S. imports from the country in question. They picked a very, very high import elasticity, which is basically a measure of how much imports change when a tariff goes up. Picked a number of 4, which is a very high number. If imports disappeared that quickly with tariff rates this high, there would be no U.S. imports and they would have no revenue, which contradicts, of course, the administration's contention that they're going to raise a lot of revenue with this.
So do you believe that the formula, let's take the administration at their word, do you believe that the formula as postulated does account for non-monetary tariff barriers?
No, it's really a made-up number. I don't know. There's nothing in economic theory and economic, empirical work. There's no rationale for it, really. For example, most importantly, I guess, no mainstream economist, macroeconomist would tell you that you should try to solve the problem of the U.S. trade deficit with bilateral tariffs. The question really is about the balance between U.S. consumption and income. It's a macro question that has to be solved in the aggregate, not by taxing individual countries.
And this idea that it will, I'm going to try and find what the president says. It's going to be good. It's going to be big. The economy is going to boom. Even if we allow for the hyperbole that frequently goes with the president, I'm trying to be as charitable as I possibly can to this reworking of the global trade. And I think we would all accept that the US has been unfairly treated in many cases on trade in the past. But can you see a way in which this addresses it?
No, we should be running a trade deficit with some countries and a surplus with others, even in a world in which the US overall trade is balanced. So this clearly, by putting very high tariffs on countries with whom we have a trade deficit, it really doesn't address the overall problem, and it really penalizes countries that have a comparative advantage or a natural match with the U.S. in terms of supplying us with goods that we really should not be producing because we cannot do it.
Exactly. That's the idea that shoes are made better and the efficiency of producing in other countries because you release production capacity for more suitable things. Now, when I looked, for example, at the tin tariffs of the 1890s, I know, I really am that sad. When I looked at the tin tariffs, I saw that it actually took about 12 to 15 years before production of tin really got to levels that were economically viable again. This is going to be the same whether it's automobiles, whether anything. It's going to take a decade or more to rewire manufacturing, if indeed it can be done.
And if it's done, we'll have a lower level of income. And, you know, I cannot state that enough. This is not a plan for prosperity. This is a way to reindustrialize in the most inefficient way possible. Do we think that there are trade barriers that should be addressed? Yes. Do we think there are compelling reasons why the U.S. should want to reshore or begin to produce some goods for national security, economic resilience? Yes. Is this the way to do it? No. This is optimized for maximum inefficiency, as well as really upsetting all of our trading partners, friend and foe.
Have you, I'm just going to throw this out, have you asked yourself in a quiet moment over a cup of coffee, how did so many economists sign on to this?
No, because I don't think most trade economists sign on to this. There are some, there's always been some sort of, I'll call them heterodox because we're being charitable, who sign on to theories that are not espoused by the majority. One interesting thing about this, putting on my social scientist hat, is that we're going to see what happens next. What happens? The administration has asked us to be patient through the end of the year. As you justly pointed out, it takes much longer than that to rewire global supply chains. So we're going to see what happens by Q4 of this year.
Mary, well, forgive me, I'm going to be coming back to you multiple times between now and the end of the year. Peterson really is the home of expertise on this, and I'm grateful to you as always. Thank you.